Yeah. And I've seen many colors of this piece, and they are all beautiful. And I don't know, a piece like this, it's technically a shawl, but you just kind
Hmm.
of wear it, right? Like I've
Yeah.
it kind of, when it's really cold, you sort of put the biggest part in the front. It's like a whole nother layer on you. And I like that it gets really skinny, so you can just kind of,
Yeah.
make it do
All
whatever.
shawls, I think, need to be wearable as a scarf as well, because then you get the most use out of them.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of any any shawl becomes a scarf at my
Yeah.
house. So I think I'll do a screen share just so we can get a really beautiful look at this project.
Well, the photos are so lovely in the book that it would be a
Yeah,
shame
well,
not to share them.
it's Anne waving it around is not bad. I'll
Well, we
give you
can get into the details of it when you wave it around.
exactly. So here's the cover, just a beautiful spring moment. Um, we work with an amazing photographer and an amazing stylist, Elisa Waitala and Alessandra
I
Mortola.
loved the photographs you took, the still lifes with the yarn and some of the they were just stunning.
Well, you can see, they got hold of your yarn and look where they went with it. They made these little swatches that are, you know, I don't know. They're just very clever, and they always surprise
Yeah.
us. We don't, and
Yeah.
our editor is Melanie Fallick, who is legendary book editor for decades. And we've been so lucky to have her as our creative director for the field guides. She brings such imagination, and sort of, I feel like this field guide captures what you're up to
Hmm.
really wonderful way. Um, this is the amazing cardigan. It's called Transom. And let's talk about that. We'll get to it in a second,
Hmm.
but oh, here's Ireland.
Looking very misty.
One photo of actual Ireland. But if you look at that photograph and you look at the palette of your yarn, I believe you can see pretty much most of the colors in your palette
Yeah,
coming right.
and it's really great that my intention came through, because that was the idea, is that it was very, very much based on Irish landscape and where I live, because I live in the country and I walk every day up and down our hill, so I'm very much rooted in the countryside. I'm a country girl.
Girl. Well, it definitely, I think one lesson from the pandemic for me has been an increased love of nature, just
Hmm.
like a powerful need to be in nature as much as I can. And once you're in nature a lot, and we took so many pandemic walks just around our neighborhood, which is a very suburban, basic kind of place. But once you start to do it often, you just notice so many subtleties of color and texture and season. It became it's still, I mean, I was just out yesterday for a long walk just around our neighborhood, and
Hmm.
the kinds of nature that you start to discover when you are paying attention, and you've seen it a lot of times. So subtle changes really become
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, you're very aware of seasonal changes and things like that. And even relative from one year to another, it's like, oh, the bugs are out earlier this year. Or
Mhm.
like, I was a couple of weeks ago, I had COVID for the first time, which was a
Oh,
miserable experience.
sorry.
But I was up, at least I've got like, I kicked my husband out of the room. I've got the bedroom is quite big, and there's a desk in the window. And so I've got a big step out window. And across the road, there's trees with crows up on top of them. And they were so noisy and back and forth and dropping stuff all over the road. And but like it was like having an entire, I don't know, 3D pro vision or something. You just it's they entertain me all day.
Yeah, it just
Um,
doesn't take much, if you're really attuned to it. And like you say, over time, like the subtle changes are the ones that um, you just start to notice, and you start to
mhm.
care. Anyway, okay, the Transom cardigan is a classic example of Carol Feller putting all kinds of fascinating little details that add up to a really, well, I'm wearing it right now. It feels real good. I'm wearing that one that's in the picture, actually. Um, Talk about the shoulder construction, because I think
Yeah.
this is really amazing.
And with some of these shoulder constructions, they're ones that I've kind of worked on over the years, that they would have been like the bones of these would have come in some of my first designs, and then I keep refining them over the years, taking the parts that work and dropping the parts that don't. So it starts in the very middle of the back with a small little rectangle of the ribbon. Yes, see at the very top here where you've got the ribbon coming out in both directions. There's a small little triangle at the top that you do starting at the top of the neck, and you work down just to the bottom of the saddles, and the stitches then are just put on hold for the moment where you'll come back to them. And then pick up stitches on one side of that little triangle that you've done and cast on at the front. So what you're doing is like creating a very tiny little shoulder with just a small bit at the front and the saddle at the back where you can knit it from side to side. Put that on hold. So you've now got two on hold, and come back to the other side, do the same thing with the other side of the neck, and pick up stitches along the second side of that little triangle. So then from there, you've got this small upper section that sits across the shoulders. So you can pick up stitches from the front and knit them down to the underarm from the back. And of course, you can see at that point, you're picking up stitches on one side and the other, but you've got those live stitches still in the middle, and they can all join up. So the rest of it from that point is kind of more straightforward, because it's all just working down with armhole shaping and body shaping. And then when you come back to your sleeves, you've got the live stitches that you had started before. So they form the very top of your shoulder saddle, and work short rows back and forth back so that it forms a curve, and the sleeve is worked from that point down. But again, I use a lot of short rows because I like things to be seamless but still have plenty of shaping. So by using short rows, it means that you can very easily put in the shape of your body. You can slope your shoulders, you can curve your sleeve, the top of your sleeve. And with short rows, if you want to change it a little, it's not that difficult. So if someone wanted to make a larger sleeve, for instance, you just pick up a few extra stitches in each side and you work more short rows. So it's very manageable for most knitters, because it doesn't require a huge amount of extra calculations. The only part that I do find that diagrams and explaining how it goes together is very helpful for people, because when you're doing slightly different construction, the visualization getting started can be where people trip up. They're like, I don't know how you're doing this. And when they go through it, they're like, oh yeah, it makes sense now. But
Yeah.
the initial visualization can be the sticking point, so to speak.
Well, you were incredibly kind to cook up some video tutorials to go with this field guide. And we'll put the link in the chat, you guys, because I do think it's helpful to see it in 3D and to talk through how this comes together. If someone hasn't done a saddle shoulder before, what's your pitch? What's your, what's the benefit of going to extra steps to create a shoulder like?
The benefit is that you get this really lovely continuous stitch pattern all the way down from your shoulder down. It's continuous. There's no break. You're not picking up stitches around it. It just flows right from this point down.
Yeah.
I like the shape of saddle shoulders as well. I'm looking. It's like I'm not wearing a saddle shoulder now. I should probably have one on, but normally it means that you can also even adjust it where you can see the width of the top can be changed to suit your shoulder width as well, that you can make it narrower, wider, to match. So I'm big into people modifying garments to suit themselves, measuring themselves, checking each part, shoulder width, bust width, sleeve length, upper arm size, and just making small tweaks along the way so that it really, really fits them well and they feel comfortable wearing it.
Yeah, I just love this, the way are those twisted stitches that make the pattern? Like, how are you getting the diagonal stripes?
Those ones are just cables. It's just, I think it's probably a 2x1 or might be a 2x2 cable. It's just a cable that keeps going one end, and then when it finishes, it starts over the other end. So just very simple cables across reverse stockinette. Yeah, you can see them just in the thing there. They're just cables across each side, and then you've got the two of them coming together in the middle here. So it's each shoulder is the same as one side of that back. So it's like the two of them put together there.
Engineered, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely. It's my engineering construction.
Again, here's Nua in a lovely little moment of baskets. We all store our things, don't we? And
that's when the kittens get into it.
Yeah, that's where they move in. Again, this is the twining wrap, and you can see here sort of the drape of it is just wonderful because of this yarn. And again, it's if you haven't worked cables, you know, this seems like a fancy project, but I honestly think the pattern takes you all along. It takes you the whole way. And
Yeah,
I found it. I
they're
hadn't.
not
Yeah.
they're not very complex cables, and because it repeats once you've learned it the first time round, it should flow a bit more smoothly than at that point.
Yeah, you build up as you go, and you sort of go, oh yeah, yeah, here we come. You know, we're
Yeah,
back at it. So
yeah.
um, I really like the idea of a triangle shawl as a way
Hmm.
to learn your way through whole new things. Okay, here's a super cute project that the trellis top, again in Nua, again a really inventive construction. It's a vest or a tabard, maybe very modern, super cute. I love the buttons that you picked to go with it. These sort of large shell buttons, and we've seen all kinds of buttons be used on the side
Hmm.
of this. Um, let's see if we can find a shot. There you go.
Yeah, the
So
key with the buttons here is you want them really light, because the yarn, it would so easily get stretched out of shape, which so that it kind of limits you to a certain extent with the type of material you're going to use if you're going to go for a big button.
yeah, these are the beautiful, it's my favorite kind of button. They're shell
Yeah.
buttons and they have this iridescence to them, and they come in all different sizes. I've used them
Mhm.
on every kind of garment I can think of. But I'd never seen ones this large used on a garment. So it made me really happy when this was the direction that you went. Can you talk about how
Mhm.
this one is made? Because it's deceptively simple, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
there's
this one is very straightforward, and it's this is all about the texture, because it's cables of sorts, but used in a very different way, because this is about creating texture with cables. It's just they're all just little simple one by one cables. So you're creating this very delicate lattices across the bottom. So it's solid on the bottom, and then it goes from there up to stripes, with stockinette stitch up along the body, so that the only place it's solid is at the bottom. So you've
Mhm,
got the front section, and you've got the back, which just goes straight up. Back section has got a little bit of neck shaping. And
mhm,
then the finish, to me, with something like this, is it's all about the I-cord. The neck finishing is just a simple I-cord all around, so that it means that you're not adding any extra closure, but you're giving it a very clean, tailored feel to it. And the same all around the rest of it. You're picking up the knitting and I-cord edging, and that's what allows you to put those buttonholes in as well, because they're all created with the I-cord edging. It means also that you can even adjust it as you're going along. So if you do want smaller buttons, for instance, you can just make a smaller loop along the side. And I've seen people even just go ahead and sew the sides up of this and opt to make it more into a full vest as well. And there's no reason why you can't. Um, that it Yeah, basically it's got a lot of possibilities. It's all about just texture, really, is what I think of when I see this, and it's simple lines. Here we go. You're stripping the layers off.
I'm like super, you know. Yeah, no, it is. It's just a super cute layer, and you can do it with, just one button or all of them
Yeah.
or whatever. But
I've
I just,
seen different names for that as well. And the thing is this is one that changed as we went along, because in my head originally it was going to be a poncho, and the way as we started working through, we're like, no, it's not a poncho. It actually has ended up becoming a different beast.
definitely evolved as we went, which is actually
Mhm.
one of my favorite things about field guides is this collaboration. Especially, I think Melanie has um, such good sense about being responsive to what you as the designer are
Yeah.
wanting to do.
It
Oh,
was it was a really fun process, and I think and it was even more fun because I got to view my yarn from an outside pair of eyes, which was really interesting as well, and how, just how she wanted to use it, was really enjoyable.